franchise reach the finals. The larger question is how that player became remembered mainly through somebody else. The answer begins in eastern North Carolina, where his jersey was retired while he was still a teenager. Mitchell Lee Wiggins came into the world on September 28, 1959, in Lenoir County, North Carolina. The exact town has been listed a couple of different ways over the years, with some records pointing to Grifton and others to Kinston, but both sit right there in Lenoir County, in the eastern part of the state. This was small town North Carolina, the kind of place where a gifted athlete gets noticed fast and never gets forgotten, and Mitchell was gifted. He attended North Lenoir High School, and what happened there tells you everything about how special people believed he was. In 1978, while he was still a teenager, North Lenoir retired his number 22 jersey. Most players wait decades for an honor like that, if it ever comes at all. Mitchell got his while he was barely more than a kid, a sign that everybody in that community already understood they were watching something rare. But raw talent and a retired jersey don't automatically map out a smooth path forward. Mitchell was hard to pin down in those early years. He wasn't the type to lock into one place and stay put. The road ahead of him would twist and turn in ways nobody could have predicted. His ability was never the question. The question was where he'd finally plant his feet long enough to prove it. And as it turned out, it would take 3 different colleges before Mitchell Wiggins found a stage big enough to show the world exactly what he could do. The college years read like a roadmap with a few too many stops. Mitchell started out at Truett-McConnell College, a junior college, back in 1978. From there, he moved to Clemson University for a season, and then finally he landed at Florida State, and that's where everything clicked. At Florida State, the raw scorer everyone had seen in high school became something the whole country could recognize. Across 2 seasons with the Seminoles, Mitchell averaged roughly 23 points and 9 rebounds a game. Those aren't just good numbers, those are the numbers of a man who takes over ball games. He became Florida State's first 2-time first-team All-Metro Conference scoring champion, and he earned All-American recognition twice. He wasn't just filling up a box score, he was one of the best scoring guards in the college game, and his resume stretched beyond the campus too. In 1982, Mitchell suited up for the United States national team at the FIBA World Championship, and he came home with a silver medal. That mattered. It meant he'd already tested himself against elite competition from around the world before he ever turned professional. The wandering was over. The stops at 3 different schools had finally led somewhere. He'd become a genuine scoring machine, a legitimate pro prospect with international hardware to back it up. By the summer of 1983, Mitchell Wiggins had done more than enough to hear his name called in the first round of the NBA draft. But here's the strange part. The team that drafted him wouldn't hold on to him for even a single night. The 3-school path can look unstable when reduced to a list, but Florida State revealed what the movement had produced. Wiggins rebounded at a rate unusual for a scoring guard, faced defenses designed around him, and earned recognition in consecutive seasons. Florida State later placed him in its Athletic Hall of Fame in 1994 while his professional career was still unfolding overseas. The school remembered those 2 seasons as a destination, not a detour. The 1983 NBA draft was loaded. This was the class that produced Ralph Sampson, Clyde Drexler, and Doc Rivers, names that any fan over 50 knows cold. And right there in that same first round, at number 23 overall, the Indiana Pacers called Mitchell Wiggins' name. It should have been a night of pure celebration. Instead, it became his first hard lesson in the cold business side of professional basketball, because that very same night, before he'd played a single minute for Indiana, the Pacers traded him to the Chicago Bulls. He was shipped out for Sidney Lowe and a second-round pick. Just like that, the team that drafted him decided he was worth more as a trade chip than a player. Welcome to the NBA. But if that stung, Mitchell answered it the only way he knew how, by playing. In Chicago, as a rookie, he showed up and he showed out. He appeared in all 82 regular season games, every single one, and he put up 12.4 points, 4 rebounds, and 2.3 assists a night. That's a serious rookie season for a guard who got moved on draft night. He proved he belonged. He proved the Pacers might have moved a little too quickly, but Mitchell's time in Chicago wouldn't last long either. In the summer of 1984, the Bulls made a move of their own, sending him to the Houston Rockets in a deal for Caldwell Jones. And that trade, the one that carried him to Texas, was about to place Mitchell Wiggins on the biggest stage of his entire career. Playing all 82 games as a rookie matters because availability would later become the largest blank in Wiggins' resume. Before the suspension, he had shown that he could withstand the schedule, accept a role immediately, and produce without a protected development year. Chicago did not move a failed prospect. It traded a durable young scorer whose value had already become useful in acquiring veteran frontcourt help. In Houston, Mitchell Wiggins joined a Rockets team that was building towards something big. He wasn't the star, and he knew it. He played primarily as a reserve, backing up guards John Lucas and Lewis Lloyd. But make no mistake, he was a valuable piece on a team with real ambition. And in 1986, that ambition carried the Houston Rockets all the way to the NBA Finals. For Mitchell, this was the mountaintop. When the postseason arrived, he was there for all of it. He appeared in every one of Houston's 20 playoff games that spring, averaging 10 points a night while shooting nearly 50% from the field. That's efficient, dependable basketball on the game's brightest stage. He wasn't just along for the ride, he was contributing to a finals run. Waiting for the Rockets, though, was a wall painted green and white, the Boston Celtics, and not just any Celtics team. This was the 1985-86 Boston squad that finished the regular season 67-15, a team widely regarded as one of the greatest ever built. They were led by three Hall of Famers, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish. Houston fought, but Boston was simply too much, closing out the series in 6 games. Still, for Mitchell Wiggins, this was the peak. A young guard from a small town in North Carolina had reached the NBA Finals. At 26 years old, with his best basketball seemingly still ahead of him, the future looked wide open. Nobody watching could have imagined that within a year, they would all be ripped away. His 20 playoff appearances prevent the easy claim that Wiggins merely occupied the last seat on a finals roster. He averaged more than 22 minutes, 10 points, and shot just under 50% across the postseason. A reserve who supplies that production through every round is part of a run's working machinery. The role was smaller than those of Houston's stars, but it was real and repeatable enough to suggest a longer future in similar lineups. In January of 1987, the NBA suspended Mitchell Wiggins and Houston teammate Lewis Lloyd after both tested positive for a banned drug. Only months after appearing in the finals, Wiggins was removed from the league for 2.5 years. He was 27, entering the period when skill and experience should have met at their highest point. Those seasons could never be restored. Coverage surrounding his reinstatement attributed a direct admission to Wiggins. He had made a mistake, had to correct it, and blamed only himself. Other quotations from that period are less securely sourced and should not be used to diagnose him from a distance. The confirmed shape of the story is strong enough. Houston continued without him, while Wiggins faced the consequences of his decision and tried to remain ready for a return nobody had guaranteed. 2.5 years is not an abstract punishment in professional basketball. It is thousands of practices missed with NBA teammates, contracts never offered, playoff opportunities that moved to somebody else, and a body continuing to age while the official resume remains frozen. Wiggins could accept responsibility and still grieve the scale of what he had lost. Accountability does not make the consequence painless. It makes the lost time impossible to blame on somebody else. During the suspension, Wiggins moved from the NBA Finals to Continental Basketball Association gyms, including a stop with the Quad City Thunder. There was no national television and no promise that staying in shape would earn reinstatement. He could have completed every minor league game and still found the NBA closed to him. He continued anyway. The work was practical rather than cinematic. Practices, travel, smaller crowds, and the repeated effort required to keep a professional body ready while 2 seasons passed. Reports from the period connected that work with treatment and accountability, though some specific quotations survive only through later sports features and deserve caution. What the public record confirms is that Wiggins kept playing until the league reinstated him in 1989. When the opportunity returned, he produced the best NBA scoring season of his career. The CBA could preserve his timing and conditioning, but it could not reproduce NBA speed, roster politics, or pressure. Wiggins therefore had to prepare for 2 possibilities at once: that the call might come, and that every small gym game might be the highest level still available to him. Continuing under those conditions was not proof that the original mistake no longer mattered. It was proof that he understood readiness was the only part of the future he could still control. In 1989 and 90, Wiggins returned to Houston alongside Lewis Lloyd. Across 66 games, he averaged 15.5 points, the highest scoring average of his NBA career. Losing 2.5 seasons had not erased his offensive ability. The comeback was not a clean fairy tale. Coach Don Chaney publicly criticized Wiggins' defense, and the arrival of Vernon Maxwell reduced his minutes and future role. Houston now had to weigh a productive scorer against defensive concerns, age, and a changing backcourt. Wiggins had proved he could return. He had not guaranteed that the organization would continue building around him. After so much lost time, His NBA window was already narrowing again. That 15.5 average deserves to stand as more than a convenient redemption statistic. Wiggins returned without the uninterrupted development a guard normally receives between 27 and 30. He still found enough rhythm to exceed the scoring average of his rookie year and every season before the suspension. The performance did not erase the ban, but it rejected the easy assumption that the player who returned would be only a diminished reminder of the one who left. It also made the next rejection more complicated. If Wiggins had returned unable to contribute, the league's retreat would be easy to explain through basketball alone. Instead, he scored at a career-best rate while carrying a history every front office had to evaluate. His case became a test of how long professional consequences should follow a player after formal reinstatement. Teams were free to decide the risk remained too high, but the stat line made clear they were not simply rejecting a player who could no longer help. When that season ended, Mitchell Wiggins became a free agent, and the phone did not ring the way a man hopes it will. He just averaged more than 15 points a game. On paper, that's a player worth a look, but the reality was cold and quiet. Across the entire NBA, only one team showed serious interest in signing him, the Philadelphia 76ers. One team. That tells you how heavily his past still hung over his name, no matter what he just put on the stat sheet, and even that one opportunity nearly collapsed before it began. In November of 1990, the 76ers moved to sign him, then backed away. According to reporting from the Houston Chronicle and the Philadelphia Inquirer, the deal fell apart when Mitchell declined to take a complete physical that included a substance test. That's how it was reported at the time, plainly, as a fact of the negotiation. We won't read more into it than the record supports, but the outcome was undeniable. No contract, no team, nothing. And so Mitchell Wiggins, a man who had reached the NBA Finals and just posted a career-best scoring season, sat out the entire 1990-91 campaign. An entire year, gone, on top of the 2.5 he'd already lost. For a lot of players, that's the end. That's the moment the career quietly dies and the world stops asking questions. But Philadelphia didn't fully close the book on him. The 76ers stayed in contact through that lost season, keeping a thin line open. And in July of 1991, that patience turned into paper. Philadelphia signed Mitchell Wiggins to a one-year contract. It was a lifeline, maybe the last one the NBA would ever throw him. And it would carry him to one final season in the league, on a team led by one of the biggest personalities the game has ever known. So in July of 1991, Mitchell Wiggins put pen to paper on a one-year deal with the Philadelphia 76ers, a contract reported at the time through the local Philadelphia press. After everything, he had one more NBA jersey to pull on. And in Philadelphia, he found himself sharing a locker room with a force of nature, Charles Barkley, one of the loudest, most magnetic personalities the game has ever produced. It was a fitting stage for a final act, even if Mitchell's role in it was a quiet one. The 1991-92 season would be his last in the league, and the numbers tell you exactly what he'd become by then. 49 games, 4.3 points a night. This wasn't the guard who'd averaged double figures as a rookie, or the scorer who'd poured in 15.5 a game after his comeback. This was a veteran hanging on, filling a small role, taking whatever minutes were offered. And there's no shame in that. Plenty of talented men never get a final season at all, but you can't help doing the math on what might have been. When it was all said and done, Mitchell Wiggins' NBA career came out to 6 seasons, 389 games, and 3,877 points. Respectable numbers for sure. But look closer, and you feel the hole in the middle of that resume, the seasons that should be there and aren't. 2.5 years lost to the suspension, another full year lost sitting out. That's roughly 3.5 prime seasons erased from a career that lasted only 6 on paper. Imagine what those totals look like whole. At 32 years old, the NBA was finished with Mitchell Wiggins. The bright lights clicked off for good. But here's the thing about a man who'd already clawed his way back from the bottom once before. He wasn't about to hang up his sneakers just because the biggest league in the world had stopped calling. The part most American fans miss began after the NBA stopped calling. Wiggins continued playing professionally through 2003, with stops in Greece, France, the Philippines, Portugal, and American minor leagues. This was not merely a veteran collecting final checks. In Greece, he won scoring titles in 1994 and 1996 and earned 3 All-Star selections. Those seasons changed the meaning of his career. The NBA record contains 6 seasons and a large hole where his prime should have been. The international record shows that the scorer from Florida State remained capable of leading leagues long after that hole appeared. Different competition cannot be converted neatly into hypothetical NBA totals, but it proves the ability did not disappear when American attention did. The overseas years also demanded a kind of professional humility that the NBA resume alone cannot show. Wiggins had once played beside stars on basketball's largest stage. Now he had to earn status again in countries where his draft position and finals appearance carried limited practical value. Winning 2 Greek scoring titles several years apart demonstrated more than one hot season. It showed that he could preserve his craft, adjust to unfamiliar basketball, and remain a leading scorer deep into a career repeatedly interrupted at home. Wiggins also had to adapt repeatedly: new countries, teammates, coaching styles, and roles, all without the institutional protection of being a domestic star. When his playing years finally ended, he moved to coaching in lower leagues, including the Spearfish Black Hills Heat. The uniform changed, but basketball remained work rather than nostalgia. By then, he had built a professional life far longer and more geographically varied than the 6-season NBA line suggests. Off the court, Mitchell Wiggins built a remarkable athletic family with Marita Payne Wiggins. Marita represented Canada in track and field at the 1984 Summer Olympics and won 2 silver medals. One parent had reached the NBA Finals, the other had stood twice on an Olympic podium. In 2002, the family settled in Vaughan, Ontario, where they raised 6 children: Mitchell Jr., Nicholas, Andrew, Stephanie, Angelica, and Taya. The sons pursued basketball in different ways. Mitchell Jr. and Nicholas were selected in the Harlem Globetrotters ceremonial draft in 2014, while Andrew became the first overall pick in that year's NBA draft and later an NBA champion. Those achievements belonged to the sons who earned them, not automatically to their father. Yet Mitchell and Marita had created the household, knowledge, and example surrounding those careers. Andrew's success did not complete an unfinished Mitchell Wiggins story. Mitchell had already been a college All-American, international medalist, first-round pick, NBA finalist, comeback scorer, and champion scorer overseas. Watching his son go further added a powerful family chapter without reducing the father's life to a rehearsal. Their careers were connected, but neither needs to borrow the other's identity. That distinction makes the family achievement more meaningful. Mitchell could recognize experiences in Andrew's career that he had known himself, while also watching his son navigate opportunities he never received. Pride did not require pretending their paths were the same. It allowed a father with his own complicated history to celebrate a different career on its own terms. On September 9, 2024, Mitchell Wiggins passed away at the age of 64, surrounded by the people who loved him most. His old team, the Houston Rockets, released a formal statement mourning the man who had once helped carry them to the finals. And now, with the whole story laid out, the real question comes into focus. How should we remember him? Because it would be so easy and so wrong to reduce him to a single word: a suspension, a cautionary tale, somebody's father. That's the version most people know, and it's the version that does him a disservice. The fuller truth is richer and far more human. Yes, Mitchell Wiggins made a mistake that cost him dearly, and by the accounts we have, he owned it without excuses. But look at everything else stacked up beside it. A retired high school jersey earned as a teenager, a silver medal for his country, a 2-time All-American who became one of the best scoring guards in college basketball, a first-round pick who reached the NBA Finals, a man who lost more than 3 prime seasons and refused to vanish, clawing his way back to post the best scoring numbers of his life when everyone expected him to fade, and then a second career overseas, complete with scoring titles the American public never got to see. This was not a man who quit. Time and again, when the easy choice was to walk away, Mitchell Wiggins chose to keep playing, keep fighting,